1, 2, 3, 4.
This is Kellii Scott, longtime drummer for Failure, but also for bands like Blinker the Star, Baruch Assault, Enemy, and hit singer-songwriter Linda Perry, just to name a few. He's also an A-list studio drummer in the LA area. Kelly's style is crushing, yet provides space for songs and atmosphere to breathe. The opposite of how I play. All gaps must be filled with fills. The way he hits drums, combined with the production techniques of room sound and gates, creates a patented, intimidating wall of sound, if you will. I first heard Failure way back in the late 90s when I was on tour sharing bills with like-sounding bands. While touring in our van, his band broke through the speakers with an original fuzzy, confident yet eerie vibe. Still with mind-jarring hooks. Like if your house was being invaded at night, but you were serenading the raid at the top of your lungs. Is this goth? I don't know. Is it commercial? I don't know. Is it awesome? Yes. It was a perfect time for this sound, post-grunge, yet before radio got too soft or too DJ metal rap. I call it Nirvana underwater, prepping for space camp. Anyway, Failure put out many full lengths on majors and a few on indies, but their sound has stood the test of time. As you'll see, whenever they decide to reunite to play a show, good luck finding a ticket. Kellii is an animal lover and a vegetarian, but also loves the UFC. Recently, Kellii has gone through some life-changing, stressful health conditions. I'm glad to say he's still here. This is where we pick up.
Yeah.
How many you got? How many dogs you got?
Stop it. 2.
Yeah. I got 2 pit lab mixes, 2 cats, and 6 chickens.
Yeah, 2 dogs and a cat. Yeah. One doodle, one schnauzer terrier, and the cat is, I don't know what the cat is. She's cute though.
A mutt.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for taking the time. I know we're kind of from the same era, but we've never met before. I was on a band on Reprise, touring around basically when Fantastic Planet came out. Called Muzzle, that Howie Klein, the president of Reprise.
Oh yeah, I remember Muzzle.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
it's weird. Very rare anyone knows that. It was kind of in the same vein. We were a lot poppier. You guys were more
drug-addled.
Mm-hmm. So basically, what's going on is currently I play with Duff when he's not touring Guns N' Roses, and I play with this other band called Vendetta Red. That was on Epic for a while.
We ran into Duff. Oh, you know what? Actually, he was at. We ran into him a little while ago, but he was there because his son's band was playing.
Right. Daughter. Yeah.
Or daughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
At some festival.
Mm-hmm. She's making her way. She loves music.
Yeah. I like Duff. Duff's a good dude.
Totally solid. The best big brother I could have asked for.
Yeah. I'm good friends with Frank.
Okay. Yeah.
I actually hooked Duff and Frank up with a friend's studio last year so they could do some pre-production before tour.
Oh, wow. Small world. So, yeah, I started this thing because I got in I was playing with Roger Fisher, the original guitar guy of Heart. He was trying to start up this new tour where he's going to play all the Heart stuff, and he invited a bunch of his friends on, and we rehearsed for like 2 months out in Carnation, Washington. Let me turn this up a little bit. Check. And there was a huge snowstorm while we were rehearsing. And after the very first show of the tour, which is his birthday show, I ended up flipping my van, driving back to my house, and got ejected into it was like 2 a.m. I got ejected into the mountain, and broke ribs and my ear was hanging off and had spine surgery. Yeah, so I was in Harborview in Seattle for 30 days. And this is kind of like, this channel is like about, so I'm on my comeback. I'm at like 75% now. I'm able to teach. I'm able to play again. Not like aggressive stuff. I'm almost there, but I've been playing like funk bands and jazzier stuff and stuff like that, which has been very, very cool, very therapeutic. But I just wanted to put something out there. There's like bad news everywhere right now. So I started this thing where I'm like, hey, why don't I just reach out to all my drum heroes and, you know, just on a shot and see if they want to share some stories, etc. If they've had to deal with any kind of nagging soreness or major injuries, you know, stuff like that. And
well, like, you know, I just had cancer surgery.
No, I'm coming from a place where I love your playing, and I'm not a rock historian, so I'm trying to connect, and I'm meeting with you now. But yeah, please tell me about that. Yeah,
well, I'm kind of in a similar way going through exactly what you're talking about.
Wow.
I guess it was like the beginning of the last week of March, I was diagnosed with colon cancer.
Man.
So in the midst of this whole COVID thing, luckily, after the sort of first wave settled down, I was able to get in for last minute surgery. Actually, 2 last minute surgeries. I went in to have part of my colon removed, like kind of a 5-inch piece where the cancer was, where the polyp was, cancerous polyp. And when they went in, they saw a whole bunch of cysts lining my abdomen. Wow. So they wound up sort of backing out and not taking the piece of colon because the surgeon was a little worried that maybe it had spread or there was just another site of cancer. She described it as being pretty bad. Yeah. So they took out probably like a 1/4 pound of tissue, did a biopsy. It came back totally clean. It was just from a previous injury where I had fallen 3 stories and landed on my back.
What's that? That happened?
Yeah. It was that was, I was up in Canada, actually, in Blinker the Star. And we were having a golf tournament. So we went up to a friend's chalet and the balcony railing had been rotted. And I leaned up against it and literally fell 3 stories and landed on my back. Totally walked away from it. I was sore for like a week or 2, but never had it treated or anything like that.
Yeah.
Now flash forward, almost 20 years, the surgeon finds this and is like freaked out that it might be more cancer. So she just took a massive biopsy of that and closed me back up. Of course, it came back like 3 days later and she's like, that's good. So we're going to get you in for the actual surgery. So they had to reopen up like 4 of the incision sites to go back in on Cinco de Mayo, which was exactly 6 days later.
Yeah.
And then, they went in, they gave me a couple other incisions. Altogether, I have like 7 incisions in my abdomen. One of which was like 3.5-inch C-section.
Yeah.
Kind of like they do for pregnancy to remove babies. But this was to remove the piece of colon that they had to remove. So that was, that's been
How
about
are you feeling right now?
7 weeks. Honestly, fortunately, I'm in really good health. Fortunately, I already have a great diet of eating nothing but plant-based.
Good.
So on the outside, I healed pretty quickly. After as soon as you come home, because of COVID, I couldn't stay in the hospital.
Right.
I literally had the surgery, was out of surgery by 12:30 in the afternoon. And before you can go home, you have to be able to walk around. You have to be able to pass gas. You have to be able to, sit up on your own, like all of these things. Because I opted to go home. I wasn't going to hang out in the hospital with like a 95% mortality rate due to COVID lingering around. Yeah. So I opted to do all of my post-op at home. So I was at home by 6 o'clock.
Jeez.
Both times.
Is any of this pain, do you still have lasting pain? Is anything like incapacitating?
No. No, I still have a few like weird dietary things. But pain, like I didn't feel any pain on the inside. They snip all the nerves.
Yeah.
You can't really feel anything that's going on there until, it kind of like gets to the end, and then obviously it's like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom.
With all the incisions, do you feel any kind of core loss?
It's a little weird, and there's definitely core loss. Luckily, again, I was in really good shape. Like I do crunches every other day. I have done for, the better part of 30 years.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, the definition is gone, and you can kind of see that they're a little, instead of meeting like that, they're a little like that in some places.
Yeah.
And there's definitely in some of the incisions where they had to go back in again, there's some scar tissue in there. So there's like kind of a big bump on two of the sites. But there's no pain. I actually started back playing. I didn't play at all, other than like on my legs with drumsticks.
How long?
For probably the first 4 to 5 weeks. And then starting about 2.5 weeks ago, I went out to the studio because we were supposed to be flying around this month to do, we had some shows. We released a box set for the new Failure stuff. And we were playing 3 cities, 3 nights in each city. And we were going to play a record a night for the first 3 albums, Comfort, Magnified, and Fantastic Planet. So I had, previous to the surgery, been going out to the studio several times a week to start working on a bunch of that stuff we've never played live or haven't played since the 90s. So I was brushing up on that so I could be ready before, all of us got into a room. And then, of course, all this stuff happened. So I went back out there and, the first time kind of took it easy and just played through the parts, more like session style.
Yeah.
But I went out again on Monday and all was well. Like hands above the head.
Oh, wow.
Plugging through, full blast, like zero sign of any of the stuff that I had previously just been through.
These are all boxes I'm still trying to check, because I was a very physical, emotional.
Yeah, same here.
And like, it's great. Like I started playing. So I had a kit delivered to the hospital. And it was like, sir, you can't even move yet. Like I was paralyzed for 2 days. And the doctors got pissed off. And they're like, move that down to the physical therapy floor on the 4th floor. So I had to wait for it. But I was so stubborn. I was like, this didn't happen. Distractions. This didn't. Everything's fine. And I'm like yelling at the Fisher brothers. Michael Fisher is the magic man. And I'm like yelling, I didn't cancel the show. You canceled the show. You can't replace me. Like, I was really stubborn. So I was like, I'm going to go start playing right away. Yeah. And there's videos of me like playing on a trash can and I have a catheter in and I'm just like, no, business as usual.
Oh,
but I started playing a show right after I got out of the hospital and it was way too early. Like I was playing and my head was leaning back and I cut the show a half an hour early. It was just a mistake. Yeah. And, I thought that I'm trying to outsmart a spine thing and it just didn't work. So that was last year. This year, I'm like all about recovery. No more distractions. And this is part of it. Just like maybe there's people out there who've had an incident and they're like hopeless. Here are some suggestions from your heroes, my heroes, to maybe they've been through the same thing or they're struggling too. Here's what they suggest. Rather than just reading bad news all the time.
Well, again, I mean, I was super fortunate. Like I haven't drank or done drugs in 16 years.
Wow.
I eat an all plant-based diet. I sleep well, I exercise well. So if I was ever going to get cancer, like 50 years old was the perfect time to get cancer for me. So it really wasn't a bad thing. Like we literally... I did one of those routine screenings where you swab your bowel movement, you sent it in the mail. They called me back like 4 days later saying, hey, there's something weird. We're going to get you a colonoscopy. I got the colonoscopy like 3 days later. So now we're looking at like a week maybe 8 days.
Yeah.
Got the colonoscopy, I could see, I was awake for the whole colonoscopy, and watched them going down inside your intestine, and then boom, there it was.
Oof.
And I didn't know what I was looking at the time, but it definitely looked pretty mean.
Yeah.
It wasn't after the fact. I started looking online, like what's a polyp supposed to look like. It was not symmetrical, and in hindsight, I was like, oh yeah, that's not good. So they ripped it out, and that came back 3 days later. They're like, yeah, you have cancer. I got a CT scan and an MRI within like another 3 days. So now we're at 2 weeks, and I'm ready for surgery. The first time, unfortunately, and I was really pushing my surgeon. Luckily, she was super cool. My whole team was just amazing. Not that I have anything to base that on. I've never been injured before. I've never been to a hospital. Certainly nothing like this. Yeah. But she had my back. She was like, look, we'll get you in. You're at the top of my list. And then she came back a couple days later, probably we're at about 3 weeks now. And she's like, I can get you in next week, but I've got to tell you, and you're going to have to sign all these releases right now because of everything that's going on. There's a 95% mortality rate.
Jeez.
I'm like, what? And I'd been reading all this literature, like, colon cancer is slow moving. If you're going to get a cancer, that's the one you want because the success rate is like 90, 95%. And I had caught it really early. My parents were like, we don't want to know. We don't want to go to the doctor. If we do find out, we'll do nothing about it and pretend it goes away. I'm the total opposite. So, in my mind, like I wasn't afraid that I had cancer. I just wanted it gone as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
That's all I cared about. And she's like, yeah, there's a 95% chance that you're going to die if we take you into surgery. I was like, what are you talking about? It was like, almost everybody lives from this surgery, barring, some sort of complication. She's like, yeah, we're all 24 hours a day working on people with COVID. And none of us have been tested. If we were to be tested, there would probably be no one in the hospital to take care of these people. Yeah. So I honestly can't tell you that there aren't going to be several people during your surgery that are infected. And people are just catching it. And when you catch it in that state, like you're straight on an intubator and your chances of living are not very good. So I said no. And then 2 weeks later, she hit me up again. She's like, look, we've got all the COVID people over here. We've all been tested. We're like, clean the whole place up. We know there's going to be a second run. We're trying to get everyone in for an elective surgery as quickly as possible. I'm like, I would love to go.
Yeah. It's been hard. Like I've been trying to just get MRIs because they say with spine accidents, after 2 years, you're probably going to be what you are. And I'm at like a year and a month or two now. And I've been like, I want to go in there. I want an update, and they're like, no, yeah. COVID. So I've been having to find something else, jumping through hoops to get some MRIs to get an update and stuff like that. But I'm glad you're here.
Who's your insurance company?
Well, lately
like Blue Shield or one of those?
Yeah, Anthem, Blue Shield, Blue Cross. Yeah.
I'm with Kaiser, and they have like a massive complex right down the street from me.
Oh wow.
So I'm super, super fortunate. Like one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Last thing I got diabetes. Again, like another amazing thing. It's like, who the fuck becomes type 1 diabetic like at 45 years old? Yeah. But
I would love to go plant-based. Well, not love. I'm leaning towards that, but my wife trains in jiu-jitsu, and she comes home all the time like, it's meat night.
No, dude, I tell you, like, I am super strong and super fit. Wow. And you tell your wife, dude, what do you think meat eats to get their protein? Yeah. They eat plants. Yeah. Meat does not grow protein. No. Meat gets its protein from eating plants. There's way more protein in plants than there is meat. and you're not going to wind up with like all kinds of crazy shit because of
I know. It's
in
just
me.
that when you're walking around the neighborhood and you smell that sizzling fillet, this Neanderthal thing.
You get over it. You
Yeah.
get over it. I was as big a steak eater as anyone.
Yeah. Huh. Well, we are growing a ton of vegetables, since all this stuff happened. We're like harvesting every day, harvesting potatoes, harvesting onions.
Oh, cool.
Everything's going in the ground.
Yeah.
And it's working. But if we were in LA, because we were there 2008, 2009, anything you stick in the ground grows. Up here, it takes some a little bit of magic. There's just so much rain,
Do you compost?
Yeah, we have the chicken, so I mix the chicken stuff in with
right,
compost and dirt, and it makes it like a nice magic sauce. And we're raising bees, and we're.
Oh, I can't wait to get a house so I can get a beehive.
Yeah, these are the tame ones. They don't sting. They pollinate the vegetables. The mason bees. Yeah, leaf cutters.
I've wanted bees for years.
Mm. Hey, can we do like a little left to center thing and do a little music stuff?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I mentioned, in the 90s, we're 90s guys and we're touring around and we're probably touring with the same bands or whatnot. But then I hear this song and it's like, oh my God, the drums are crushing. And it's like, post grunge and what Seattle was doing, post grunge it got really poppy all of a sudden, but it was like a loud pop. It was like the Posies and they're not quite giving up the grunge yet, but it's not quite to clean guitar, jangly,
right
campfire songs yet. So yeah, like I heard you guys like probably touring in the van radio or whatever, and it's like, wow, this is like Nirvana, but it's underwater, or it's like Weezer in an abandoned shed. Then everyone broke up with their girlfriends playing through Motorhead's gear or something. But there's heavy doses of Jawbox
like,
and
chord
like
stretches like this.
Yeah, like we're jagged but like really catchy. And then at the same time, like Hum was like hitting their stride.
Yeah.
This band I really liked from Orange County, which is where I grew up, called Smile.
Oh yeah, I remember Smile.
Yeah,
cool.
They all kind of fit together, and I thought that was like a cool little sound. So I was like, I got to keep an eye on these guys. I'm gonna throw a name at you. You probably don't know. There's this guy down in Orange County. After Muzzle broke up, I moved back to LA, and I just started taking gigs, like whatever. I'd answer ads and I'd take gigs. There's this guy named Denny.
I remember those days.
Like Recycler or Orange County Weekly, whatever. I think I answered in Orange County Weekly. This band called Kickball. This guy named Denny Lake.
Yeah, I remember Kickball vaguely.
U.S. Crush. They changed their name to U.S. Crush after they got signed.
Terrible.
It was just very. It was like Pennywise or something.
Why do I know that name?
He was a stocky, curly, blonde-headed guy. He was the singer, and he like wrote all the songs. But he hired me to play some shows, and after every show, we would rehearse at that same place right off the 405 in Fountain Valley. And after the show, there's like 4 shows, and it's like I'm not in the band. He hired me to play, but I have to wait till the end of the show to get paid. And like by the 5th show, I was like, dude, I'm over it. Like, pay me before the show. Like I learned all this stuff. I show up, I do the thing. No, we got to wait till we get paid. And it's like, come on, dude. And he's like, so I finally like I can't do this anymore. And he's like, that's okay. We got Kellii, we got Kellii to come in and record our record. So we're all good. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, you guys are set then. It's like, you might've just.
Did I actually record the record?
I don't think so.
I wonder, maybe that's why it sounds familiar. I had 2 friends. There were these guys that they were with this radio station up in the Bay Area, and they had moved down to LA, and they were trying to get out of radio, and they were starting to like try and represent bands.
Yeah. And
they brought in a couple of bands and had me do drums on their records. I think that's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They were with KOME, which was a Bay Area radio station, and they moved down to K-Rock. So I had met them. It was Carson Daly and this other guy, Jim, when they first moved down to LA, because I was good friends with, do you remember Zeke's Backyard?
Yep.
Yeah, Zeke Piestrup. He was also a K-Rock DJ. And he introduced me to them. Actually, Zeke and I are still really, really great friends. He's a filmmaker now.
You know, that makes sense because in the ad, I remember said, we were part of Jed the Fish's Catch of the Day. We're part of the Jed Fish's Catch of the Day. You know, we're looking for we were doing some showcases. And I was like, okay, you know, they were in Orange County, but I was up in LA at the time. But it's just after a while, I was just like, come on, dude.
Yeah, I knew that sounded familiar. I don't think I did a whole record, though. I seem to only recall doing a few songs at some recording studio in like Van Nuys somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love those days.
Yeah. But yeah, what was up with like, man, it's just impossible playing with local LA bands and singer-songwriters. And like, there's always some catch. I used to have this one guy that used to like try and talk me down for my rehearsal fee every day. Mm-hmm. And he would bring me samosas. Like he knew I liked samosas, and there was this great samosa shop near his house. And he would stop and pick up a bag of them, and he would always like try and trade me these samosas instead of like, you know, the $50 or whatever. I mean, it literally was not a lot of money that I was charging him for rehearsals. And he full well had the money in his pocket. Right. But he was still like trying to get off with samosas. So he'd wind up giving me the samosas and the money anyway, every single time. But it never stopped him from like just doing this really weird thing.
I could write a coffee table book on the shittiest like meetings or auditions in some weird rehearsal place in Burbank where you have to enter in a code and you walk in and there's these dirty guys there, you know, and there's like mirrors all over the walls, and it's some actor who wanted to start a band, you know. There's like multiple of these. It's like, I'm not going to give any names, but there's like an actor who's in big movies and he wanted to sound exactly like Chris Cornell. I was like, oh my God, what is going on right now? But there's like so many examples of that, you know. People don't know the trials and tribulations, the adventures that you go through to get where you were at. You know, they think it's just like, hey man, I'm good with the drums and we're signed.
It never stops. It never stops. Like you still have to, even once you get where you're at, there's work to stay where you're at.
Oh yeah, stay relevant. Yep. I was just listening to David Spade's podcast, you know, and he's like, if he wasn't constantly working right now, you know, 5 minutes later you're forgotten about. He's just constantly working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and fortunately, it's like, you know, given the personalities aside, I mean, that's life. I think if you work in anything, you have to deal with, you know, weird, quirky people with their own agendas. We are fortunate that once we sit down, like we really connect with something and we get to create something that never existed before, and inevitably love what we do.
Especially you, like that's the reason why I reached out, because I have like my, you know, my drum heroes and they pretty much all said yes. And then there's drummers. My theme was like a drummers with a sound. And I talked with, who was the last guy I talked to? Ben Smith of Heart. He was with them for like 20 years. And I was like, you know, 100 drummers can hit the snare drum and it's going to sound different, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously you, to me, have a particular sound, you know, that's really important. It's like crushing, it's confident. It's different than like, you know, whatever, listening to Tom Petty or
it's my
Stuart Copeland, you know, there's
my insides. And I think that's what I share with like all of those drummers.
Absolutely.
Is I never took any formal lessons. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that I remember like vividly connecting with, I had an older brother that just used to beat the crap out of me. And I couldn't hit him back because he would kill me.
Yeah.
But I had a drum set that I could hit in the way that I wished I could hit him.
Yeah.
So I vividly remember connecting with that inside turmoil and having it literally like go through my hands and project through a drum set. Mm-hmm. So that more than any like, you know, paradiddles or learned instruction was sort of where I began approaching the instrument from. You know, like you write a love note to a girl and she says, you know, checks the no box instead of the yes box. You know, that's another thing to play about. You know what I mean? And then you get older and things don't work out, and that's another thing to put in your playing. And you just become more of an emotional beast rather than a technical beast.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I never dug into that stuff. Like this guitar player for Third Eye Blind, he wanted to start a side project a few years ago. And he's like, come on out to San Francisco. We'll use our singer's house studio and we're going to record hits and we're going to get in a bus and we're going to do this big stuff. And basically I had all these songs that I was writing for my one-man band. And he kind of wanted to redo them and do them his way. And I was like, opportunity, whatever, we can collaborate. Anyway, I go out there, I go to Joeyjenkins' house. He's gone. And it's just me and the guitar player and their engineer. And we're starting to track these songs. It's like, okay, this is cool. I can hang out in this part of San Francisco for a while. Then Joeyjenkins shows up. He's like, he's at some bar. He comes home and he's like, yeah, cool. You got, have your cute little thing. But he walks in when he's listening to the playbacks and he's like, man, nice. I love those drums. They're like slamming. It's really cool. And I said, you can thank my stepdad for that. And he's just like, huh? Not the coolest thing to say, but it's like, that's where it's coming from. Like, yeah, that's when I taught myself, and that's when I spent all the time alone. Cause I grew up on the beach. I wasn't surfing. I wasn't skateboarding. I was pretty isolated, and I was teaching myself the drums and fell in love with K-Rock and fell in love with KLOS. And new wave and all this stuff. And it's like, but that's when I got good, is all that time alone, really concentrating and taking the emotion from, those maybe darker experiences. And that's what develops your sound for sure. And then, but what other, at that time, what other influences did you take from to develop your own style?
I definitely played a lot. Like everything I learned was more or less playing along with records. And fortunately, I moved out to LA like really young, and I didn't really hear my style of playing start to develop until I started to play with people, and more so than anybody, the Failure guys. Like that's where like I really honed something in that, like everything about it, all the pieces came together. And this was the thing that, for better or worse, I was going to be stuck with for the rest of my life.
That's what Martin said, Pretenders. He said, playing with people is like a whole different thing. It's a whole different.
That accelerated my learning, like way, way quicker than just sitting at home playing along with records. Especially, I got, and even more so, the thing I love about drums is you can always get better. But it's always about being able to throw yourself into an uncomfortable situation, or at least me personally, I find that's where I learned the most in music and life. I got this gig with Linda Perry working at her place Monday through Friday, every day of the week. Basically playing on all of her demos and playing on, Christina stuff and Pink stuff. And I mean, it was just this great gig, but the one wall that I kept running into is she likes to turn compressors up super loud and have the drummer play super, super soft. Like literally the sticks are falling out of your hands. Wow. And everything I had ever done previous to that was like total control and total power. So I was really, really uncomfortable, but faking it for, I would say, probably the first couple of years. And then one day something just luckily clicked, and it became a lot easier. But playing with her every single day of the week on every single type of music that you can imagine, in a style of playing that I was just completely not familiar with. Yeah.
It's like going to the gym. Here comes a new muscle.
It literally, like those years, I think that was like somewhere around 2008 through 2012 or so.
Yeah.
Like I became such a better, like that's when I became like a session drummer. When someone could ask me to do something and I could do it.
Yeah. I'm faking it right now.
I had control. I had control over my instrument that I just didn't have before. because I was purely flying on emotions, and my emotions were all like really intense.
I know when my emotions are getting too high, because the singer of the Vendetta Red band always says, "Enough with the cymbals, you're making my teeth hurt."
Yeah.
So I have to watch it. And that's why I play in a Tower of Power cover band right now, and I'm totally faking it.
Garibaldi.
Totally faking it, but I am teaching myself to listen, because it's just shredding horn section.
Yeah.
Listen to the band, dynamics, they'll give me dirty looks. Yeah.
Fake it till you make it. It's all about projected outside confidence.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't tell them, nobody else will know.
Yeah, I got to watch that, because they're all like, "Oh, yeah, sounds good," and I'm just like, "Sorry about the whatever." They're like, "Sorry about what?" Oh, okay, I'll just keep that.
Yeah, most people don't know the half of what's going on back there.
What was the first gig back in the day where you thought, like, okay, like, I'm really good. I think I'm a pro now?
Oh, I don't know that I've had that feeling yet. I literally, like, to this day, I always get stage fright. I always get nervous. I always imagine, like, this is going to be the time when I make that mistake and everything stops and everyone looks at me. And it's my fault. Like, it always boils down to it being my fault, which is a blessing and a curse. It's part of what makes me so just utterly serious about playing, is I just never want it to be my fault. Yeah. So I tend to over prepare for everything. And as soon as I sit down, I'm just way too serious. I don't enjoy playing drums. I enjoy the byproduct.
Yeah.
I enjoy it when it's over, and luckily I have clarity now. Like I can see what I just did, or I can listen to a recording. That part I like, but the seriousness and the focus and the just being as hard as I can possibly be on myself to make sure I get it better than the last time. Like, I don't truly believe that I've had my best performance yet.
That's good.
So in answer to your question, I mean, I've had moments of elation where you played a great show and you were happy, and you just like disappeared for that hour, and when you've totally disappeared, that's where you want to be. That's like the eye of the storm. Yeah. That's what makes playing music so beautiful. You're trying to get back to that place that you're given like an hour to get out of self and go and disappear into this place where, you're just a part of I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I just talked to Murphy.
Very philosophical and hard to describe, but it when you're there. It's almost like your wedding day. Your wedding day is like 8 hours long, but it felt like it went by in a half an hour.
The build up. It's more common than you think. I've heard that through these interviews quite a bit, that like I haven't felt that yet. They're still nervous. I haven't felt like I've made a certain level,
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the beauty of playing drums.
Yeah.
Like, you can always be more physically fit. You can always have better technique. You can always be faster and more beautiful, and there's tons of stuff to learn. And I mean, it just never stops.
Keep me off of Drumeo. Like, you're a songwriter too. You write songs.
I fall into one of those categories where I really love the power of working with people. Mm-hmm. I would much rather be in a setting with other people and create something. I know my limitations. Yeah. And I know the limitations of one person as opposed to 4 people. 4 people will always be stronger and more talented than one person. Yeah. Paul McCartney proved that. John Lennon proved that. The Beatles are the Beatles because it was a combined force. It wasn't just one guy. As great as Paul McCartney's stuff was and John Lennon's stuff was, neither of them was ever as good as the Beatles were.
Yeah.
So I tend to gravitate toward that. I don't like creating and engineering. I get really kind of upset. And when I get on a creative tangent, I don't have the patience for something standing in my way. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm very stream of consciousness. Like I'll get an idea and I'll either start playing the idea and the rest of it will unfold in front of me in real time, or I'll have an entire idea. And unless I can execute from start to finish, I kind of can't be bothered with it. I've tried, and I find it like just super frustrating, and it's never what it started out as.
Yeah.
But I know when I'm like working with a group of people and someone presses record and I start playing, I always get what it is that I set out to get.
It's that organic magic of getting talented people in a room. And most of the time, which is a consistent thing in these interviews, is there's someone's laughing or smiling out of, yes, we've just created something really cool. It's going on right now.
I got to, when I was in, you remember that band Blinker the Star?
Yeah.
Jordan was the main guy. It was me and this guy, Jordan. And we were out on tour, and we had been like writing like well over 100 demos for the next record. And we kept sending them in, and they kept passing on them. And then eventually they sat Jordan down. They're like, hey, give us a list of like your dream producers. And one of the people on the list was Lindsey Buckingham.
Oh my God.
So we're like a couple months later, we're like out on tour, and all of a sudden we show up at a hotel room, and the person behind the desk is like, oh, we have a package here waiting for you. And it was a cassette tape recorded by Lindsey Buckingham himself on an acoustic guitar and playing the drum parts on the guitar while playing his idea for an arrangement for the music and the vocal part. Just like 2 demos of only Lindsey Buckingham. And we're kind of like, what is this? Like, what does this mean? So flash forward, he really liked the band. He wanted to work with us. So we go down, we get in the studio, and he decides that he wants to come in the room and actually perform and play and record with us.
Yeah, Jesus.
And I quite literally, after playing like instantaneously, it was just that magic. And about a minute and a half, 2 minutes in, I couldn't hold on anymore. And I literally had to drop the sticks because the energy flowing through me because of the combination of holy shit, it's like Lindsey Buckingham. He's right here. We're doing this thing. It feels so great. We've never played together. Just all of that stuff I found to be so overwhelming that I fell off the horse, more or less.
Too much power.
I mean, it was insane. It was totally insane.
I have this little segment on my channel. I'll forward you the link later on, but I call it Glory Days, where it's just a funny thing where I'm a cowboy and I'm out in the hills and I tell these little rock and roll stories of my past. And one of them was playing a benefit for Jerry Cantrell. It's a Music Cares benefit.
I was probably at that.
Moby was the DJ. Steve-O was the comedy, and the performers of the night were me and Duff's band and Jeff and Mike. It's called Loaded. The Wilson sisters from Heart, Mark Lanigan, and Billy Idol, all going to play is at the Nokia Theater in LA.
Yeah.
And Alice in Chains. So I get there, it's like Alice in Chains stuff is there, Billy Idol stuff is there. We're going to be like the backing band for Mark Lanigan and the Wilson sisters with no rehearsal.
I love that.
We're just going to tap it. We went to the Wilson Sisters Hotel in Hollywood, and I was like tapping on pillows, and they're trying to work out the harmonies. We're doing an Elton John cover and a Stones cover. But we get to the sound check the day of, and there's Alice in Chains drum kit, there's Billy Idol's drum kit. So we do the warm up, we do the sound check on Alice in Chains drum kit, and then come showtime, the sound guy is like, no, you got to use the other one. Billy Idol's drum kit is totally different. It's like way up high, huge kick drums, cymbals, and make sure you don't touch anything. Okay, so, I don't use 2 floor toms, whatever. It's a big kit. And anyway, so it's like lights go down, never rehearsed. Here we go. Playing on Billy Idol's drum kit, backing up the Wilson sisters in front of like a sold out thing. And I was basically floating. I didn't drop the sticks, thankfully. But I'm just like, yeah. I don't even remember those 10 minutes or whatever.
I had the same exact experience at one of those, probably I think a year or 2 before that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, at Music Cares?
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
wow.
Music Cares is who sent me to rehab. That's how I got sober. So I've played tons and tons and tons of their events.
Good people over there.
We did it. I think it was either the year before that or 2 years before that with Linda and Slash and a bunch of other people. But the same exact thing, where we didn't rehearse, we showed up, and just did a bunch of songs that we had never played before.
So, back on the health tip, a little story. A few years back, we played this festival called Soundwave in Australia. You've done that.
Yeah. And, who'd you play that with?
Oh God, name it. They were all there. Everybody. So, the headliner was Metallica, but it was like Offspring, Perfect Circle, Blink-182, blah, blah, blah,
right,
all the way down Cypress Hill. Did it. But I ran into this. I met this guy, John. I think it's pronounced his name Deddy or Det. John Deddy. He was the Testament drummer, but Slayer hired him to play for the Soundwave Festival.
He was wicked fast.
Slayer and Anthrax.
He wound up getting carpal tunnel really bad.
It's probably because of that. Because I saw his hands in the shuttle every day.
Yeah.
Back-to-back sets every time. So the reason I bring this up is I have major props to that guy. But Lollapalooza, when you have to play side stage and main stage every day.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
That was pretty brutal. Actually, that was, by the end of that tour, I had blown out my left wrist. Like I could literally pop it in and out. And shortly after that, I went to, a friend of mine turned me on to this book of stretches by this couple called the Warrentons. And they were Olympic trainers. And like the beginning of the book, there's all these anecdotes about how they were at the Olympics with some of their athletes, and during trials, another athlete like blew out his knee or something. And his coaches were like, okay, well, pack it in. That's the end of your Olympic dreams. And they pulled him aside and they were like, basically told him that isn't the end of your Olympic dreams. And they put him on this like crazy healing regimen. He didn't wind up winning the Olympics or anything, but he got to finish competing at the Olympics, and just went home.
Yeah.
But it's basically a book of stretches and icing.
Yeah.
So since Lollapalooza, I have, after every single time I play, I ice my hands. My hands and my forearms, like all the way up to here. I submerge them into ice. Like I do it for 2.5 minutes. And then I take them out and I stretch them out. I have like a bunch of series of different stretches that I do. Not the old, that stick thing where you do that.
Yes, I've seen that one. Yeah.
Don't do that. That's not a good stretch.
Ice is the healer, yeah. Ice.
There's like 3 or 4 stretches that you do, and then you put them back in there for another 2.5 minutes. You take them out. Like I was doing that even like during my drinking, partying days. Like that was sort of the one consistent thing. And within, a matter of like probably 6 months, like I couldn't pop my wrist out anymore. And it quite literally is something I have done consistently every single time I play the drums. Afterwards, if I'm going to the studio, I go down to the 7-Eleven and grab bags of ice and put them in my sink when I get home.
Yeah.
That has definitely saved like these guys. I have no pain. I have no problems with my hands. Like physically, other than that, I've never had a drum injury.
Yeah, still got the hand tingles and the hands and feet. Once you do the C6, it's the hands and feet. You feel like you're wearing gardening gloves. But I mean, it's really my legs. I'm trying to get my legs.
You do yoga at all?
I used to pre-accident. I know that will help for sure.
Get back into yoga.
Yoga.
Because yoga is all about like putting the spine back in its correct position. But take it slow. I'm actually gonna start getting back into it.
Yoga
probably next week. Bikram, yeah, I'm a big Bikram fan. But my wife and I, before the surgery, we were doing the Bikram yoga, but obviously we were doing it, post COVID here in the house every morning. But yoga's everything to me. It's the perfect exercise. of
And
just body and mind.
Besides the ice, do you like use any daily vitamins that you like, or creams or anything? I think magnesium.
No. I mean, my nutrition is really good. When I'm on the road, I bring out like, I don't eat milk products and stuff like that. Like I'll usually eat have milk from some kind of nut, oat milk or cashew milk or almond milk, without sugar because I'm type 1 diabetic. But I have this green powder that is basically all your vitamins and minerals from plants. So I'll put a scoop of that in there. I have also a plant-based protein that I scoop in there. I also do like 2 shots of apple cider vinegar. That takes all the lactic acid out of your muscles. So you're not sore afterwards. I take a bunch of like hemp seed, flax seed. I make this crazy shake that while I'm on the road, I usually have it twice a day. And I just make sure to eat and get lots of rest. I take a nap before shows. Like after sound check, I'll go out and eat dinner. I'll Google and find a nice plant-based restaurant in whatever city we're in. Then I'll come back, maybe see friends for about a half hour and then take an hour nap. Wake up about a half hour before showtime, stretch out a little bit and go play.
I need more sleep. I was around like 10 miles before a show and then 10 miles after.
I try to do. I try on days of shows, especially. I don't use, like, other than walking to a restaurant and walking back, like I don't use any of my energy. I make sure to load up with like good nutrition. Another thing I have to do because I'm diabetic and I burn so many calories is before the show, I have to put 2 bottles of water and I fill them with honey.
Yeah.
Otherwise my sugar will drop too low and I'll fucking pass out on stage.
Oh, Jesus.
So I have 2 bottles of honey water that I'm constantly like going to, which obviously gives you tons more energy to burn while you're playing.
Yeah. Hey, one thing that's really consistent that's been popping up from these drum heroes is, when's your book coming out? Everyone's got a book right now.
I don't know. I don't know. And I've definitely been asked to, probably less about the actual drum part of my life. Is just, it'll be like the drums are what I do.
Yeah.
But moving to LA at 17 and going from like, 17-year-old drug delivery kid in the Valley to, sober guy running sober livings. Like there's a lot of like crazy shit that happened in between.
Yeah.
Like, not unsimilar to a lot of like, the rock star drugged out dudes, when you do bad things happen.
Yep.
And they're fun to read about.
Yeah, I'm trying to get healthier.
But my book is definitely like, since I've become sober, my ability to take care of myself and always stay on. I got cancer, not a terrible thing. It's changed me fundamentally as a person, and it's left me better off moving forward.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how I live my life. Like the glass is definitely like more than half full and always has been. And, when there's no more water left in the glass, I mean, if you compare my life to your mere mortal, like I had a good fucking run.
Yeah. You get another chance.
Yeah.
It was close. Very close. 95%.
I try and leave the world a little bit better than I found it when I woke up.
Yeah. I wanted to do something short and maybe a little fun. I wanted to play one of your grooves and you can tell me when I'm doing wrong. Is that okay?
Are you going to play another Space song?
I'm going to play a failure groove. You can tell me how I'm doing it wrong.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Let me get this.
Oh, did you already play it? Did you record it?
Oh, no, I just got to angle this over here. I've kind of got an all-in-one studio, so I could just spin my stool around.
Yeah, that's a sweet space. Where are you?
I'm up in the Seattle mountains, like way just
Really?
out of the way. Yeah, this is an underground studio and it's in the mountains. So it's like no noise ordinance, just tucked away.
Wow.
I actually have 5 kits in here. Um, but you know, the parents are scared these days, so everything's kind of Zoom.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see if we can hear this.
Yeah. Post COVID, I've been out twice. Since all this.
I always want to put that palette in there. I know you're doing 4 on the floor, but
It's not 4 on the floor.
oh, okay.
That's I've seen, like, there's a couple YouTube videos going on around of that, and I always love like writing in, telling the people that it's like most people get it right, but they play 4 on the floor.
Oh, okay.
It's kick, snare. There's no kick under that first snare.
Right.
So it's kick, snare, kick, 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 snare, kick, 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 kick. So it's like I don't even know what you call that. So it's kick, snare, kick, 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 snare, kick, kick. Yes. And the other thing is the tom part. I'm not going down the toms.
Yeah, that was like.
And what's happening is my hands are always going like this. They never stop playing that 16th note. So when I do the tom fill, I'm actually starting it on the floor tom. So I'm going da 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 da. But then your left hand. Yes, but after you hit that right-handed snare, your left hand starts to the open hi-hat. Yeah, the notes are open. Yeah, and they're open. The first 3 hi-hat notes are open. Perfect.
Cool. 101.
It's a cool little beat.
Yeah. That one, like way back in the day, like, I mean, you had your radio hit, but that one back in the day, I was like, oh, that's cool. I like
that one is probably the hardest thing to play from that record because there's no fills. It's like a drum loop for 6 minutes long, almost 6 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's also what I would say about your sound from me is like there's crushing power, but you're patient. There's so many times where I listen to Failure songs and I was like, you can fill that gap with blah, 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 blah. No, he's still trucking.
You know, and oddly enough, when we first start writing and recording, well, nowadays, and on that, like we wrote and recorded the songs at the same time.
Yeah.
Like we'd start on song 1. I would go into the drum booth and we would come up for the arrangement for the song and the arrangement for the drum part all at the same time. And it would be recorded while I was doing that. So I'm constantly having to get rid of variations of the ways that we've done the song and keep them compartmentalized in my brain because it's constantly changing. And then by the end of that day, I have to have a finished drum product. And then the guys will spend anywhere from like 2 days to a week and a half doing all the overdubs.
Yeah.
But that's the way we still do drum parts today. Only now I've kind of honed it in a little bit more. I used to play everything that could be played and slowly took things away to get it down to next to nothing. Over the years, I've honed it down to where I have to play less of everything there is to play. Yeah. You know, so I start from, let's play half of everything that you could possibly play. So there's less for me to strip away and I can get down to like, what's the meat of the song and what actually needs to be there by the time I'm finished in the next 2 hours.
Yeah. So I haven't seen photos of your whole discography and the tours and stuff like that. Have you always been on a 4-piece or did you have other elements involved throughout? Because, you needed specific sounds, whether it be like Simmons or rototoms or percussion, stuff like that?
Well, with the Failure stuff, since we've done the reboot, I mean, back in the day, the only thing I had extra was the hi-hat ching ring, the Bonham style ching ring.
Yeah.
And the bongos, which I actually only used for that song, for a Space Song. Now I have a lot of electronics because I'm playing a lot of the samples that are on the record.
Yeah.
But I'm playing all those samples in real time. We don't use click tracks.
Yeah.
So I have a little iPad. We all have iPads. The whole set, all the sounds are controlled by iPad and foot switches.
Okay.
Ken controls everything. After each song, he clicks a foot switch and it brings up the sounds and like the tempos and all that stuff for the next song. So I have a tempo that counts off, like I see 4 to 8 lights, cool. And then I have to play the song at the correct tempo for the entire song.
Yeah.
Because if I have a timed reverb coming up, it's not going to work if I'm playing the song too fast or too slow.
With all your, excitement, your adrenaline, it's like you need that.
And there are certain parts that go on top of the beat and maybe speed up a little bit, and there are other parts that you're supposed to pull back and slightly slow down a bit. Like in that way, Failure's always been really organic, and there should be some movement, but controlled movement.
Mm-hmm.
But now even more so because we're playing like all of this timed stuff that we performed on records as a 3-piece. When in actuality, we should either be playing with a click track or hiring a fourth person.
Yeah.
So it's even more serious nowadays.
Tracks. Have you done sets with just actual tracks with like an in-ear or something like that?
We use in-ears, but no tracks.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, we're kind of we did a tour back in last January, and there were 2 songs where we got into kind of entertaining the idea of at least trying it out and seeing if it would work, despite how we all kind of in our core felt about it. I would much rather like learn how to play several instruments at the same time and put in the work to do that than just let some invisible thing do it for me.
Right. It's good. It's good to have that toolbox in case you get hired for session work. If money's on the line, it's good to get used to playing with tracks. But it is.
I have played with tracks in previous.
Yeah.
I'm definitely I like tracks actually. It makes my job a lot easier. There's just so many other things that I don't have to control.
Yeah. Hey, are you I want to point people in your direction if you've got some business going on. Are you teaching?
I was doing in-person stuff. I had like a little electronic kit set up here. But since this whole COVID thing, I quite literally have been out twice since March for any extended period of time. And that was because a friend of mine has a cabin up in Big Bear. So we've gone up there for 2 weekends. They live on a really big property, so I don't have to have contact with anyone.
Yeah.
But I'll see how this whole thing pans out. I prefer in person.
Yeah.
Because of the way I teach, like I like to see people, I like to feel people, I like to kind of, not everybody is going to grow up and be a drummer.
Yeah.
I think drums are a far more useful tool than by ambitious means.
It's so hard to tell kids to stop goofing off, when they're in their own house. I like to show people how to connect with the instrument in a more inward way. Yeah.
Less about, because I've obviously become more technical because I've been doing it for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And I've sought out hey, how'd you do that? Or what's that? And, I learned paradiddles kind of, and technique and things like that just by repetition. But when you connect with your instrument and you find that weird place to dump everything, even though I didn't become aware of it until well after I got sober.
Yep.
But I find that, especially, I've seen it click so many times with people, and everyone's got their thing that holds them back in life.
Yep.
And connecting with an instrument is a really amazing way to get beyond whatever it was that something or someone did to injure you when you were young.
Right. And that the drums are a heavy core of survival for when I was young, and it's helping me now at this rough time. And the only thing that's really, when the darkness comes, is I'm fighting against my own body. Like, my brain knows what to do, but my foot isn't. Like, just for instance, the muscle that makes you do versus the muscle. You wouldn't think so if you're healthy, but it's totally different.
Yeah.
I can feel it's totally different micro things going on. And it's like daily, I'm like, working on speed, I'm working on strength. I'm like really over analyzing everything. And I'm going to a chiropractor, and I hook myself up to electricity at night with this stem machine. And
when you play, don't think.
Yeah, no, it doesn't interrupt it. It does interrupt progress.
Like, do not think. Music is not for thinking.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you're going to find that spot where your body will do what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll, even if it doesn't, you'll be freed of the burden of going through all of what you're going through right now.
Yeah. I'll be practicing the fast, like Michael Jackson stuff, like overdoing the kick drum pattern just to challenge myself. And my mind will be going like, here comes the part. It's coming up. Oh, you blew it.
And you
like,
choke.
It's like, I'm already thinking about it. I can't just let it go.
But that's why why you choked.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, I was going to plug some lessons, but we're going to plug your book instead. Keep an eye out for Kelly's book coming out.
Yeah, coming in the future. I don't know. Maybe when I'm sober, as I've always entertained this idea, it's probably part of what like keeps me sober in some weird small way. I've entertained though that when that day comes and I've been sober as long as I was not sober, which is roughly about 18, 19 years.
Yeah.
I'll retire somewhere on a lake and have a sip of wine, maybe smoke a little doob, and start writing.
Okay.
And I did, oddly enough, like cancer and marijuana. It was like, hey, I could smoke pot and it would be okay. I've got cancer. Yeah. I mean, I didn't. Like, I love being sober, and I'll probably always be sober. But
good for you.
They're little cool things to like, give yourself something to look forward to.
Well, I won't keep you. I really appreciate your time. And if there's anything,
likewise. Thanks for calling up. This is really, really fun. I enjoyed it.
Anything you need in the Seattle area, don't hesitate to reach out.
Very cool. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Maybe when you guys are traveling around again, whatever project you're doing, we can connect again. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'd love to come up and check out your spot.
We do live on a lake. So
I
actually kind of live in a retirement community. All our neighbors are elderly. And
wait, what part of Washington are you in?
It's it's west of the Cascades. There's 3 mountains outside of Seattle. It goes Tiger, Cougar, Squawk. We're in the middle. That's Squawk. So it's behind Squawk Mountain on a lake, and it's a fresh spring lake. There's fish in there. And it's a pretty cool life, because I'll do the lessons, play shows, live on a lake. I got all my animals. We got eggs from the chickens.
I'm wondering, do you know a couple, Pam and Scott Tebow?
Doesn't ring a bell.
She's my cousin. She's a school teacher, and she lives.
What school?
I don't know.
Okay.
But she also lives on a small lake in the mountains, right outside Seattle. When we play in Seattle, they like drive the hour or so in to come see us play.
It's probably close by. There's 2 lakes. We're right next to a man-made lake, but our lake is natural. It's
Are you
smaller.
360 area code?
Nope, 206.
Okay.
So that's 360. That's north. Bellingham-ish.
I have entertained moving to Bellingham.
It's nice, fisherman's town. It's a port town. College,
Yeah.
Western Washington. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, cool. This was fun, really informative, and got to know a lot more about you. I'll probably have it edited up by like Saturday or something.
Oh, cool.
It's called Drum Recovery Network. I don't know, just stupid name, but it's like,
I mean, it's
some big names. Big names.
Yeah.
Tomorrow it's Chris from Talking Heads. So
yeah, send. Oh, cool. We actually just watched Talking Heads documentary, and then we kind of went down the rabbit hole a little bit, and watched a couple of small documentaries on his wife that he's also in, because obviously they still live together and play together.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool.
Are you still? Do you have endorsements right now? Anyone you want to thank as far as gear or anything like that?
Normally I would, but I kind of have. I do have endorsements. I'm with Meinl. I'm with Remo.
Yeah.
I'm also with Vader Sticks. I endorse Gretsch drums, and they've been really amazing to me.
Yeah.
But last year when we did like a brief tour for our newest record, I needed a metal kit.
Yeah.
So I went to Q Drum and they made me a galvanized steel kit.
Wow.
I fucking fell in love.
Yeah. Wow.
I fell in love, and like this, I love the Gretsch stuff and it's like pretty close, but this is the first time that I literally felt like I was playing an instrument that could fully express all of the dynamics of my playing, without suffering. Mainly on the harder end, like most drums, you can only hit them so hard before they start to choke.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like diminished returns. And yeah, not the Q drums. The problem is, like, I've really grown used to, mainly my endorsements are more about the support. Like when I'm flying somewhere, doing another gig, like making sure that there's a drum set there.
Yeah, exactly.
And Q is just too small of a drum company to be able to put like a Q drum set at all the backline companies around the US or UK or, and I kind of ran into, luckily these shows in July didn't work out for other reasons, but we were doing them like the month of July, the second, third, and fourth week. And logistically, I had no way to get a Q drum set to all of those shows.
Yeah.
Without putting them on a plane myself and flying with them myself to every show. And it was just like, what do I do?
Yeah.
It sucked. It really sucked. I reached out to, like, I have a friend in Chicago that's got a Q set. So I was maybe going to use his and obviously mine in LA. But then there was New York. You should get one of their drum sets. It's like nothing else. They're incredible workmanship. The difference is they still use wood bearing edges. Like they have metal drums, but the inside has a wooden bearing edge.
Oh, wow.
And it basically provides a little bit of warmth that most previous metal drums never had. And it also still focuses the sound, so there isn't a ton of that crazy like ring and overtones that make them unrecordable.
Yeah.
They're beautiful. They're such beautiful drums.
I'll get one for a student kit for an experiment, because I'm a Mapex guy and they won't like that very much.
Mapex make great drums. Their top of the line kit is really nice. Yeah. I worked at a backline company for a second, and that metal drummer, I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of their band. I fucking love this guy's playing. Not Meshuggah, but they were just out with Mastodon for a while. Incredible drummer from France. They're a French band. Anyway, he used Mapex, so I was always setting up his kit, like getting it ready for when he came into town and would do clinics and shit like that. Which is kind of fun because, they send you the specs and you set up their kit and rock out on it. You got 4 toms and fucking 3 4 toms and double kick and all these cymbals and splashes. And, it's just crazy. What is that dude's name? I mean, you probably know him. He's a phenomenal
we just did a Mapex Artist Summit in August, and it was in Nashville. So I got to meet a lot of the artists there. I don't think he was there. There's a lot of hip hop guys for sure.
Oh yeah,
and,
yeah,
a couple
definitely.
country guys and stuff, and they were displaying all the new Mapex stuff that was coming out on stage. There's like 6 kits, and so the shredder, the higher ups in Mapex, who are also studio drummers, get up there and they explain what each drum series is, how it's built and how they sound. And at the end, everyone got up there and did like a full on outdo each other kind of jam circle. I was like, I was still having a hard time walking. So I was just observing,
Yeah.
But it was really cool to meet like John Legend's drummer and J. Cole's drummer. And Dom Famularo, was there, and like 3 or 4 other like really shredding guys. Got to take some folks. My A&R guy at Mapex played in Wang Chung. That's kind of funny.
Who's your A&R guy?
Bob Terry.
Okay, yeah, I've spoken to him through email.
Yeah, he's a good guy. But it was just cool to meet those folks. And
yeah, I picked Gretsch because I was working at a backline company and got to see like hands-on how drum companies treat their artists. And just showing up for them, making sure, all of the stuff, like, I won't name the drum company, but this particular drum company, their hardware was garbage. So we couldn't send any of it out. It was all dented up and just horrible. And they wouldn't send us any new hardware. So whenever their artists came through town, we would have to give them like a great package of DW hardware and obviously charge them for it.
Yeah.
So, there were certain drum companies like DW. DW is the best drum company for their artists, hands down.
Yeah.
I don't like 99.9% of their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's too common sounding and feeling for what I am looking for out of a drum set.
It was like consistent in the studio. It wasn't like higher in either of them, but it was just consistent. Yeah.
Well, and I just find that it gives every single drummer playing their drums the same voice.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I liked about Gretsch is it's the same drum company it has always been.
Yeah.
And even though to their benefit, DW just bought it, and DW has completely left them autonomous and hasn't messed with anything. The only thing they have provided is an even bigger and better infrastructure for getting their gear out there and supporting their artists.
That's true. Yeah. That's the first kit when we got signed to Reprise. I was like, I'm going down to the local music store and I'm getting black on black on black on black DW, black hardware, blah, 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 before we hit the road is like,
yeah.
And
well, back then they were hot shit. Like they were doing stuff with drums that no other company was doing.
Yeah, the hoops, the suspended.
Yeah.
Hoops, yeah, that was all. It was. I missed that kit a lot. Hey, so later on, I'll probably send you a video. My wife's a drummer too, and she's
cool.
She's really into you guys. So
you guys do drum battles? Like when you're mad at each other, you go downstairs and battle?
We've done that. She's a killer singer too. We were down in LA in 2008, 2009, and we toured around as a 2-piece called Mega Sapien. But she's kind of more into the jiu-jitsu now, but she loves to sing. So when I'm going to send you a video of her doing something like Sergeant Politeness or something, and you'll hear her sing and play at the same time.
Cool.
Yeah.
I started out being the singer and the drummer back when I was a kid, because I was still so young. I could sing all the Iron Maiden and all the Motley Crue, and because my voice hadn't changed yet, I still had like a pretty high range.
You could do those screeches.
Actually, I mean, I still have a pretty high range. You could go on Instagram and catch me. My wife likes to record me in the car singing along to Maiden tunes.
Sweet.
But yeah, tell her I am. I wish that I was about 20 years younger and jiu-jitsu came along.
Oh yeah.
I am a massive UFC fan.
Oh yeah.
I cannot get enough of UFC. I just can't get into it because I can't afford to injure myself and not be able to play.
No.
And I'm the kind of person where, you know, like anything, I get super emotional and definitely super competitive. And it would only be a matter of time before I hurt myself, probably over and over and over.
Yeah.
But props to her. Jiu-jitsu's fucking beautiful. What a great discipline.
Saturday's huge fight.
I know.
Jeez.
I know.
Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what's going to happen?
Oh, dude. Usman, I'm sorry, is going to lose his title.
Wow. Have you ever heard of the move? It's called the Dead Orchard. That's his mission. That's her teacher, Nathan Orchard. That's who she trains with.
You know, Maynard does a lot of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I could see that. He's so wiry.
He's really good. Like, he's actually been doing jiu-jitsu for quite a while, probably the last almost 2 decades now.
Well, he's a military guy, right? I think he started doing that. Yeah, because I've seen him take people down on stage.
Yeah, and him and Joe Rogan are super great fans.
Oh, that's right.
Friends. But yeah, Usman's going to lose his title.
All right. It'll be good. I haven't seen the rest of the card, but that's good enough as it is.
It looks like a pretty good card, actually.
Yeah. Cool, man. I'll send you the video of her rocking. I really appreciate it. I'll send you a link of the finished product too.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me know, and I'll spread it around my social stuff.
Cool. You guys have a good night.
You too. Thanks again for your time.